Have you ever felt like your best years are already behind you? Like the window to do something great has quietly closed without you realizing it? But is that really true? Or have we simply grown so used to living within the limits others handed us that we forget some of the greatest beginnings come late? There was a man like that. At the age of 58, he had nothing, no money, no prestigious degree, just a chicken recipe and an old car. He went door to door, restaurant to restaurant, offering his idea. 1,009 times, they said no. But he kept going. That man was Colonel Sanders, and he started KFC when most people were preparing to retire. What made him different wasn't luck. It wasn't genius. It was a quiet decision to push himself when no one else believed in him. Most people stop when it gets hard. Most people wait for the right time. Most people live safe and small. But a few choose a different path. They decide to push, to stretch, to keep walking even when the road disappears. This is not a story about success. It is a story about what happens when you refuse to settle. Somewhere inside you, there's a version of yourself you haven't met yet. A version with more clarity, more strength, more freedom. But for years, that version may have been sleeping. Not because you're lazy, not because you failed, but because life, little by little, taught you to settle. Maybe it started when your dream job didn't call you back, or when the business failed, or when someone told you that you were too old, too slow, or just not enough. Over time, you began to shrink, not because your potential got smaller, but because your belief did. The truth is, your brain is still capable of change. Your body still responds to discipline. Your spirit still longs to grow. Science calls it neuroplasticity. Faith calls it purpose. But whatever name you give it, the truth remains. Your giant is still alive, just asleep. Take Vera Wang. She was a figure skater, then an editor, and didn't design her first wedding dress until she was 40. Today, she runs a global brand. Or Colonel Sanders, who didn't franchise KFC until 65. They weren't special, but they made a decision to reawaken something most people bury with time. You haven't missed your moment. You haven't run out of chances. The sleeping giant in you is not gone. It's waiting, and the moment you begin to believe that, everything changes. But belief is not enough. You'll need something deeper, something stronger, something that shapes your days and reshapes your destiny. And that's what we'll explore next, the paradox of discipline and freedom. At first glance, discipline and freedom sound like opposites. One feels like control, the other feels like release. But in reality, they are deeply connected. In fact, the path to true freedom almost always runs through the valley of discipline. Think about your health, waking up early to exercise, choosing the salad instead of the fries, drinking water instead of soda. None of these feel like freedom in the moment. But fast forward 10 years, your body moves with ease, your heart is strong, your energy is full. That is freedom, and it was earned through discipline. The same is true for money, budgeting, saving, investing wisely. It takes discipline now, but what it buys you later is the freedom to retire well, to help your children, to say no when something doesn't feel right. Jocko Willink, a former Navy SEAL commander, said it simply, discipline equals freedom, and he lived it. Every day at 4:30 a.m. he was up training, not because someone told him to, but because he knew that discipline gave him choices, and choices create freedom. The problem is, most people mistake freedom with convenience. They want to feel good now and deal with the consequences later. But that's not freedom. That's debt, regret, and lost time. Discipline is not punishment. It is a gift you give your future self. It's not about doing more. It's about doing what matters most, even when it's hard. So here's the paradox. The more you embrace discipline today, the more freedom you create for tomorrow. It's not easy, but it is worth it. And that brings us to something even more uncomfortable. The zone that traps most people in quiet frustration. The place where dreams slowly fade. It's time to talk about the comfort zone. There's a quiet cost to staying in your comfort zone. It doesn't show up on a receipt. It doesn't appear on your credit card bill. But over time, it adds up. Economists call it opportunity cost. In life, it often looks like dreams delayed, potential wasted, and years that blur together. Comfort feels safe. It feels familiar. But safety is not always security, and familiarity is not always fulfillment. The truth is, your comfort zone is not designed for growth. It's designed for survival. And survival mode is no place for a life fully lived. Think of the decisions that shaped your life, the job you almost didn't apply for, the city you hesitated to move to, the words you were afraid to say. In most cases, the comfort zone wasn't protecting you, it was holding you back. There's a saying in personal development: the pain of discipline weighs ounces, but the pain of regret weighs tons. And regret is expensive. It's the interest you pay for staying still. Take the story of a man named James. At 45, he had a steady job, decent pay, predictable days, but he knew he was capable of more. Still, he stayed put. 5 years later, his department closed. He hadn't built new skills. He hadn't prepared. He had chosen comfort, and it betrayed him. The comfort zone is like a cozy chair. Easy to sit in, hard to get out of, but the longer you stay, the weaker you become. Not because you aren't strong, but because unused strength fades. So here's the lesson. What feels easy today may cost you dearly tomorrow. And what feels uncomfortable now may be the very thing that frees you later. And once you decide to leave your comfort zone, the next question becomes this: where will you go? What future are you aiming for? In the next part, we'll talk about vision. Not just any vision, but a vision strong enough to pull you forward, even on the hardest days. By the time we reach 40, many of us have learned to manage life, pay the bills, keep the family safe, maintain the routine. But managing life is not the same as living it fully. And somewhere along the way, we stop asking an important question: what do I truly want from here forward? A clear vision is more than a goal. It is a reason to wake up with purpose. It is a direction that pulls us forward when motivation fades. Without it, we drift. Days become weeks, weeks become years, and suddenly, we're busy but unfulfilled. At 43, Sam felt this. He had a steady job, good kids, a house with a porch, but every morning felt the same. One day, he sat down with a blank sheet of paper and asked himself, if I had 5 years left, what would I create? That question changed everything. He began drawing again. A year later, he had his first gallery show, not because the world asked for it, but because his soul did. Your vision doesn't need to be flashy. It needs to be honest. Maybe it's writing the book you've always carried inside. Maybe it's mentoring young people. Maybe it's traveling with your spouse while you still can. Whatever it is, it should stretch you, excite you, and remind you that you are not done yet. There is a tool called the Ikigai Circle. It helps you find where your passion, mission, profession, and vocation meet. Use it, reflect on it, and don't be afraid to start over. Because the truth is, midlife is not the end. It's a second beginning. And the clearer your vision, the stronger your next chapter will be. But vision without action is just imagination. That's why in the next part, we'll explore how small, daily action, done with consistency, can turn vision into reality. One of the biggest myths in personal growth is this idea that we need to feel inspired before we take action. That motivation comes first, and then movement follows. But life rarely works that way. In truth, the opposite is more accurate. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. Have you ever noticed how hard it is to start something, but how much easier it gets once you're in motion? Whether it's a workout, writing a page, or making a tough phone call, the first step is always the heaviest. But once you begin, something shifts. The mind engages, the resistance fades, you enter the flow. There's a simple rule for this. It's called the 2-minute rule. If a task feels too big or overwhelming, break it down and just commit to doing it for 2 minutes. 2 minutes of stretching, 2 minutes of journaling, 2 minutes of organizing your thoughts. Most of the time, once you start, you don't stop at 2. Starting was all you needed. Think of Martha, a 52-year-old woman who wanted to write again after decades, but every time she sat down, self-doubt crept in. So she made a small promise. Write 1 sentence a day. That's it. No pressure, no perfection. Just 1 sentence. Within 6 months, she had filled 2 notebooks. The words were there all along. They just needed her to begin. Waiting for motivation is like waiting for the weather to be perfect every day. You'll spend more time waiting than living. The real shift happens when you act first, when you choose to move forward, even when you don't feel ready. And that's the lesson. Feelings follow action, not the other way around. Now that we understand the power of small, consistent steps, the next question is where to place that effort, because not all action leads to progress. In the next part, we'll talk about how to work smarter, not just harder. Working hard is important, but working smart is essential, because not all effort leads to progress. Some people work tirelessly, day and night, yet feel like they're running in circles. Why? Because effort without direction is just movement, not momentum. There's a difference between being busy and being productive, between filling your calendar and filling your purpose. Activity does not always equal achievement. That's why intelligent effort matters. Think of Sarah, a marketing executive in her 50s. She worked 10 hours a day, replied to every email instantly, joined every meeting, stayed late just to catch up. But her career stalled. Why? Because she was spending her time on what was urgent, not what was important. Once she started applying the 80-20 principle, focusing on the 20% of tasks that brought 80% of results, her work shifted. She began saying no more often. She restructured her day. Within months, she gained back her time, her clarity, and her confidence. Intelligent effort means stepping back to ask what matters most right now. It means prioritizing deep work over shallow tasks. It means turning off distractions so you can turn on impact. There's wisdom in doing less, better, in choosing a few things to master instead of many things to juggle, because mastery brings meaning, and meaning brings fulfillment. So here's the lesson. Don't just push harder, push smarter. Aim your energy at what truly moves your life forward. And once you begin focusing on the right things, there's something else that will challenge you. The quiet enemy of growth, the invisible resistance that tells you to stay safe. In the next part, we'll talk about fear, failure, and the power of falling forward. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of success. But for many people, failure feels final. It feels like proof that they're not good enough, not smart enough, not ready. The truth is, failure is feedback. It's data. It's a mirror showing you what didn't work, so you can find what does. There's a concept called failing forward. It means using every mistake as a stepping stone instead of a stopping point. It means learning faster by falling smarter. Take the story of Michael Jordan, cut from his high school basketball team. He didn't give up. He practiced harder. Years later, he said, "I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." His misses became his foundation. Or consider the entrepreneur who launched 3 failed businesses before building one that thrived. Each failure taught him something. How not to price a product, how not to manage people, how not to market. Those lessons became his capital. Failing forward means asking better questions. What did I learn? What will I do differently next time? Where am I growing? And here's a helpful mindset. Don't see failure as personal. See it as experimental. Scientists run experiments every day that fail, but those failures don't hurt them. They inform them. They adjust and try again. The real danger is not in falling. It's in staying down. It's in quitting too soon. It's in letting one moment define your entire journey. So here's the lesson. When you fall, fall forward. Let failure be the price of growth, not the excuse to stop. And once you learn to fall forward, you need one more thing to keep going. Something deeper than motivation, stronger than habit. In the next part, we'll talk about the role of rest and why recovery is not a luxury, it's a discipline. In a world that glorifies hustle, rest often feels like weakness, but real resilience isn't built by going non-stop. It's built by knowing when to pause, recharge, and come back stronger. Rest is not the reward for hard work. It's part of the work itself. Think of elite athletes. They train hard, yes, but their recovery plans are just as intentional. Sleep, nutrition, active rest days. Because they understand one simple truth. Growth doesn't happen during effort. Growth happens during recovery. The same is true in life. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't give your best when your body is tired, your mind is foggy, and your heart is stretched thin. Rest is what renews you. It's what keeps your energy sustainable, your focus sharp, your emotions balanced. Consider John, a 56-year-old business owner who prided himself on working long hours, until his doctor warned him about rising blood pressure and burnout. So John made a shift. He began walking every morning without his phone. He turned off screens an hour before bed. He started taking Sundays completely off. Slowly, his clarity returned. His sleep improved. His team noticed he became more present, more thoughtful. And, surprisingly, his business grew, not in spite of his rest, but because of it. Recovery isn't lazy. It's strategic. It's how you keep going when others burn out. It's what gives your efforts staying power. So here's the lesson. If you want to last, you have to rest. If you want resilience, you must honor your limits and build in renewal. And once you're rested and restored, there's one final key to staying consistent: the people around you. In the next part, we'll talk about community, connection, and why who you surround yourself with might be the most powerful force in your journey. We often talk about personal discipline, clarity, and resilience. But one of the most powerful forces shaping your life is something more subtle: the people around you. Your environment is not neutral. It either pulls you up or holds you back. That's the gravity of social influence. There's a saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It's more than a quote. It's backed by science. In a long-term study by Harvard, researchers found that behaviors like smoking, exercise, and even happiness spread through social networks, like ripples in a pond. Who you surround yourself with doesn't just influence what you do. It influences who you become. Think about Thomas, a quiet man in his 50s who had always dreamed of running a marathon. But no one around him believed it was possible. They laughed, told him he was too old, that his knees wouldn't handle it. For years, he stayed inactive. Until one day, he joined a local walking group. People his age, some older. Slowly, the walks turned into jogs. The jogs became miles. 2 years later, he crossed his first finish line. What changed wasn't just his body, it was his circle. Your goals are like seeds, but the soil is your environment. You can have the best intentions, but if you plant them in negativity, they will wither. Plant them in support, and they will grow. So here's the lesson. Choose your circle with care. Spend time with people who challenge you, inspire you, and believe in your future even when you doubt it. Be around those who talk about ideas, not just people. Growth, not just problems. Because transformation rarely happens alone. It happens in community. And now you've seen all the pieces: clarity, discipline, action, rest, resilience, connection. The final step is not just knowing, but committing. In the last part, we'll talk about what it means to take ownership of your journey and how to make it happen. You've heard every piece: the truth about potential, the paradox of discipline, the power of vision, the strength of small actions, the wisdom of rest, the force of failure, the pull of community. And now, it's your turn, because none of this matters if it stays as words. Insight without action changes nothing. Reflection without commitment leaves you where you are. The real shift happens when you decide. Quietly, firmly, now. Decide to push yourself when no one is watching, to build habits even when it's inconvenient, to rest not out of exhaustion, but with intention, to choose people who stretch you, to fail forward, not backward, to begin, even if you don't feel ready. You don't need permission. You don't need to wait. The staircase won't appear all at once, but the first step is always there. You already have enough strength to start. The rest will come as you move. So take that step, make the call, block the time, write the sentence, go for the walk, set the boundary, say yes to the future and no to everything that holds you small. This is your life, and it's waiting for you to lead it. Not perfectly, just purposefully. Make it happen.